All right, let's dive into Atomic Habits by James Clear.
A book that's really all about small changes
Yeah,
leading to huge results over time.
huge results over time. And it's interesting because James Clear himself, uh,
Embodies this philosophy.
yeah.
And he had a pretty life-altering event
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
back
okay.
in high school.
back in high school.
The baseball bat incident.
Yeah, the baseball bat to the face.
Not your typical Tuesday.
No, not at all. Coma, broken bones.
Mm,
You know, it would have been easy to give up
of course.
on his athletic dreams. But he used that experience to understand
Yeah.
incremental progress.
Talk about turning a setback into a superpower.
Exactly.
It's inspiring, and that's kind of what we hope you can get out of this deep dive as well.
Absolutely. And one of the core ideas that Clear presents is this aggregation of marginal gains.
The aggregation of what
Marginal gains.
marginal gains.
Sounds complicated.
It does sound a little complicated.
It's actually pretty simple.
Okay.
Like, imagine you're trying to improve something by just 1% each day.
Fun.
Small, right?
Yeah, 1%. I mean, come on.
But think about that over time.
Yeah.
And Clear uses this fantastic example of the British cycling team.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the early 2000s, they were well.
Not exactly winning much.
Yeah, they were the laughing stock of the cycling world.
Really?
And then comes this guy, Dave Brailsford.
Okay.
He was their new performance director, and he had this radical idea.
Okay.
Find 1% improvements
1%
in everything.
in everything.
From the obvious stuff like the bikes and the training regimen
Yeah.
to seemingly insignificant details.
Kind of painting the team truck white.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They did that so they could spot any dust accumulating on the bikes.
Wow.
Because even tiny bits of dust could affect their performance.
Wow. That's incredible.
And this wasn't just some quirky thing they did.
Yeah.
It reflected a much deeper strategic thinking.
Right.
They were committed to eliminating even the smallest obstacles to optimal performance.
Interesting.
That's what that 1% thinking is all about.
So they're tweaking every little thing, their bikes, their gear training routines.
Yeah.
Even their sleep habits. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's fascinating to see how granular they got.
And it paid off big time. They went from 0 Tour de France wins to 5
What?
in just 6 years.
Get out of here.
Plus, they dominated the Olympics, set world records,
Wow.
and completely transformed British cycling.
Unbelievable. It really shows what those small improvements can do when they compound over time.
Right.
Like, imagine applying that to your own life, whether it's your career, relationships, personal growth.
Yeah.
What if you dedicated just a few minutes each day
Yeah.
to getting 1% better at something you're passionate about?
Right.
I mean, what kind of impact could that have over a year?
It's pretty mind-blowing to think about.
I would say so.
And that brings us to another kind of thought-provoking idea that Clear presents.
Okay.
What if you completely ignored your goals
Wait a minute.
and instead just focused on your system?
Hold up. How can goals be a bad thing? Isn't that what we're all striving for?
It's a bit counterintuitive, I know.
It is.
But Clear argues that focusing solely on goals can actually be limiting.
Really?
Think about it. Winners and losers often have the same goals,
Okay.
right? The goal itself doesn't guarantee success.
So you're saying setting goals is pointless?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Goals can be useful for providing direction.
Sure.
But what Clear emphasizes is that it's the system you put in place,
Uh-huh.
the daily habits and processes
Okay.
that ultimately determine your success.
So it's more about the journey than the destination.
It's both.
Okay.
But yeah, the journey's super important. And he uses this analogy of a coach, an entrepreneur, and a musician.
Okay.
They all have ambitious goals,
Sure.
but it's their dedication to the process, their consistent actions day in and day out
Yeah.
that leads to their achievements.
So maybe it's not so much about that finish line,
Right.
but the daily grind, the habits that make up the journey itself.
Exactly. We often get so fixated on the outcome that we forget about the small steps that get us there.
Totally.
And that's where Clear's idea of the 3 layers of change comes into play.
Okay, the 3 layers of change.
Yeah, he describes these layers like an onion,
Oh, an onion.
with each layer representing a deeper level of behavior change.
Okay, let's peel back this onion layer by layer.
All right, so the outermost layer is all about changing your outcomes.
Okay.
The results you want: losing weight, getting a promotion, learning a new language.
Those are all good outcomes.
Yeah, these are the things we typically focus on.
Makes sense.
Then there's the middle layer, which is about changing your processes.
Processes.
And this is where our habits come in.
Okay.
The routines and systems we create to achieve those outcomes.
So like setting aside time each day to practice a new language or meal prepping
Yes,
to
exactly.
support healthy eat and things like this.
Exactly. Those are great examples.
Okay.
And then we get to the core of the onion, the deepest layer, changing your identity.
Oh, the identity layer.
This is where the real magic happens. It's not just about doing the actions. It's about shifting who you believe yourself to be.
So it's not enough to just go through the motions.
Right.
You have to actually believe that you are the kind of person who achieves those goals.
Exactly.
I like that.
And Clear illustrates this brilliantly with the example of two people refusing a cigarette.
Refusing a cigarette.
Yeah, one says, I'm trying to quit,
Okay.
while the other says, I'm not a smoker.
Wow.
Such a subtle difference in language,
Yeah.
but it reveals a huge difference in mindset,
That's a powerful distinction.
isn't it?
The first person still identifies as a smoker battling against their own self-image.
Right.
But the second person has already shifted their belief about themselves.
Exactly. And that internal shift
Yeah.
is what truly drives lasting change. It's about aligning your actions with your desired identity.
So we're talking about changing our beliefs to change our actions. But
Yeah.
is it possible that our actions can actually change our beliefs?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it gets right to the heart of this identity shift.
Okay.
It's not just a one-way street. Our habits shape our identity, but our identity also reinforces our habits. It's like a feedback loop.
Okay. So the more I do something, the more I believe I am that kind of person.
Right.
And that belief makes me more likely to continue doing it.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
And Clear actually dives into the etymology of the word identity,
Okay.
which comes from Latin words that mean being, repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
So your identity is literally your repeated beingness.
So our habits are like votes for the kind of person we want to be.
Exactly. If you consistently write, you start to see yourself as a writer.
Right.
If you regularly exercise, you start to identify as an athlete.
Okay.
The actions we repeat create the evidence that shapes our self-image.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. It's not just about forcing ourselves to do things we don't enjoy.
Right.
It's about choosing actions that align with the person we want to become.
Exactly. And Clear uses his own journey as an example. He didn't just wake up one day and call himself a writer.
Right.
He built that identity over time through the consistent habit of writing articles every week.
So it's a two-step process. Decide who you want to be, and then back it up with small wins.
That's the core of it. Yes. And Clear mentions a friend who lost over 100 pounds by consistently asking herself, what would a healthy person do? Each healthy choice she made, no matter how small, reinforced her identity as a healthy person.
It's about aligning our actions with our desired identity.
Yes.
And slowly but surely, those actions start to reshape who we believe ourselves to be. It makes you realize how much power we have in shaping our own identities.
Absolutely. But we need to be mindful that this works both ways.
Oh, how so?
Negative habits reinforce negative beliefs about ourselves just as effectively.
Oh, okay.
Each time we hit snooze or reach for that bag of chips instead of something healthier,
Yeah.
we're casting a vote for the I lack discipline or I'm not healthy identity.
It's like we're constantly at war with ourselves, battling between these competing identities. Our habits are what determine which side wins.
That's a great way to put it. And unfortunately, many of us get stuck in these mental grooves.
Yeah.
Thinking, I'm just not a morning person or they're terrible with money.
Ugh. Yeah, all the time.
But these are not fixed traits. They are simply identities we've built through repeated actions.
So how do we break free from those negative cycles?
By recognizing that our identity is not set in stone, we can choose to reinforce new beliefs by consciously choosing different actions.
So instead of saying, I'm not a morning person,
Yeah.
we could try setting our alarm a little earlier each day and establishing a positive morning routine.
Right.
Each time we successfully wake up and follow through,
Yeah.
we're casting a vote for the I am a morning person identity.
Exactly. It's about upgrading our identity one habit at a time.
It sounds like the key takeaway here is that it's not about achieving some external measure of success. It's about becoming the kind of person who can achieve it. It's about the journey of self-transformation.
You nailed it. That's what makes Atomic Habits so much more than just a self-help book. It's a framework for building a better you.
So we've talked about compounding systems versus goals, the layers of change and how our habits shape our identity.
We have.
But the big question remains, how do we actually build those better habits and break free from the bad ones?
Well, thankfully, Claire provides an incredibly practical framework called the 4 Laws of Behavior Change.
Okay.
And that's exactly what we'll be diving into in the next part of our deep dive.
So we've covered a lot of ground exploring how those tiny changes lead to big results and how our habits shape our identity.
Absolutely. But now comes the practical stuff.
Yeah, how do we actually put these ideas into action?
Right. How do we build those better habits?
Yeah, and break free from the ones that are holding us back.
That's where James Clear's 4 Laws of Behavior Change come in.
The 4 Laws of Behavior Change.
It gives us a really clear roadmap for making any behavior more attractive.
Or unattractive, I imagine.
Or unattractive, exactly.
Okay, so it's kind of like a recipe for habit formation.
Exactly.
Okay, what are the ingredients?
All right, so the first law is make it obvious.
Make it obvious.
The cue is the trigger that initiates the behavior.
Okay, so remind me what the cue is again?
So, for example, if you're trying to build a habit of running every morning, seeing your running shoes by the door could be your cue.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so step 1, make that cue obvious.
Make it obvious so we don't miss it.
Yeah.
Okay, the second law is making the behavior attractive.
Attractive.
We're naturally drawn to things we enjoy, so the more appealing we can make a habit, the more likely we are to stick with it.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do you make something like eating vegetables more attractive?
Well, one strategy Clear suggests is temptation bundling.
Temptation bundling.
Pairing the habit you want to build with something you already love. Like if you enjoy watching a particular show, only allow yourself to watch it while you're prepping your veggies.
Okay, I can get behind that. Yeah.
So yeah, it's all about finding ways to make those healthy habits less of a chore.
Yeah, for sure. What's next?
All right, the third law focuses on making the behavior easy.
Okay, make it easy.
The less friction there is, the more likely we are to follow through.
So things like prepping healthy meals ahead of time or laying out your workout clothes the night before.
Exactly.
I do that sometimes. It does help.
Yeah, those small acts of preparation really help to remove those obstacles
Yeah.
and make it easier to stick to those desired habits.
Okay, and the 4th law?
And finally, the 4th law is all about making the behavior satisfying.
Satisfying.
We're more likely to repeat things that make us feel good.
So rewarding ourselves after a tough workout.
That's one way to do it.
Hmm.
Or it could be something as simple as tracking your progress and seeing how far you've come.
Yeah, I like that.
That sense of accomplishment can be incredibly motivating.
Totally. So to recap the 4 laws, make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying.
There you go.
It's great. But I imagine there are some nuances to applying these laws, right?
Absolutely. Clear goes into detail about specific strategies for each law.
Oh, cool.
And he also talks about how to use these laws in reverse to break bad habits.
Ah, okay. So flip it around.
So instead of making it obvious, you want to make it invisible. Instead of attractive, make it unattractive.
So if you're trying to stop mindlessly scrolling on your phone before bed, you could try putting your phone in another room.
Yeah, exactly.
Or deleting those tempting apps and maybe even remind yourself how much better you sleep when you avoid screen time late at night.
Exactly. It's all about using these laws strategically to reshape those behaviors.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. It's really not about relying solely on willpower or motivation. It's about understanding the science of habit formation.
Yeah.
Creating an environment that supports our desired behaviors.
You got it.
It's awesome, and as James Clear himself puts it, success is the product of daily habits, not once-in-a-lifetime transformations.
That is a great quote.
I love that quote, and it's a powerful reminder that real change happens gradually, one small step at a time. One step at a time.
So what small habit could you start today that aligns with the person you want to become?
That's the question.
That is the question. Something to ponder and keep those 1% improvements going.
Yeah.
And remember, even tiny changes can lead to remarkable results over time.
They really can.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into atomic habits.